Welcome to the Semaj MinsSpa. Very special place, very important space for your existence. Huh? Um, Mind, spirit, and science meet. Well, on Fit FM 96.7 FM on the FM band. Also, fitfmja.com. Want to thank our founding sponsor of the Semaj MinsSpa Network, the JN Group, Jamaica National Group. And I love their tagline, very important. We'll help you find a way. Because that's what we do here. Huh? So we are also about that same process. Now, also above or beyond consultants. They say, take you above where you presently are or beyond your wildest imagination. We also greet our immediate family in the parish of Trelawney. And then we move along the north coast all the way around to Western Jamaica on Fit FM 96.7 FM. We also greet the world on www.fitfmja.com. Shout out to Wayne Hall Network, Atlanta, Caribbean Vibes Radio Network, or Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Huh? We're global. Huh? Mission to cover the world. Our show today, we're talking about love in the anchor leg. We're going to clarify what exactly is the anchor leg. Building intimate relationships after 60. You may be old, but you're definitely not cold. All right? Love in the anchor leg of life. Building intimate relationships after 60. Now, you're in that category, you draw closer. You know someone, you have a friend, a relative, acquaintance who are in this category, give them a call right now and tell them to tune in. Why does this matter? We're offering guidelines for women and for men. We're also pointing out the deal breakers and even the choice of solitude. Because some people may just choose, listen, I just want to be by myself. Huh? We're going to talk about all of that. So welcome, welcome, welcome. This is where mind, spirit, and science meets. The idea is to get to the best version of yourself so you understand who you are and what you are about. Now, some of you probably just smiled when you heard the topic. Love in the anchor leg, building intimate relationships after 60. Some of you probably got a little nervous. And I fear you said, finally, somebody is talking about this. We call this chapter of life the anchor leg. Why do we do that? It's exactly what it is. It's what it sounds like. The final powerful leg of a race. The one where the most experienced runner is put. The one where wisdom, not just speed, wins the day. What happens in the anchor leg determines the whole race. Determines the whole race. So we draw from my work in the semajmindspa.com, and you can see a variety of articles. You just go to www.semajmindspa.com and you will see hundreds of articles. I'm a psychologist, an author, a social philosopher, and I'm also a relationship architect. Many of my articles on love and intimacy and aging have been reaching people not just across Jamaica and the Caribbean, across the world. And today we want to bring these insights directly into this package. So stay with us. This hour could change the way you see the next chapter of your life. All right? So let's start at the very beginning and further clarify what we mean by the anchor leg. We said like a relay. In track and field, the anchor leg runner is the person that determines whether the team wins or loses. They receive the baton when the race is nearly ended, either nearly won or nearly lost. But they carry everything. They must have stamina, strategy, courage, the outcome of the entire race rests on them. I use this metaphor beautifully to describe life at 60 and beyond. Because here's the truth. This is not the end. This is your most important run. And yet society has largely pretended that people in this stage of life stop wanting love. Yes, man, love is one of the most powerful forces on earth. They pretend that people at this stage stop craving connection, stop desiring intimacy. The statistics are otherwise. According to research, about 40% of persons ages 65 to 80 are sexually active. All right? Among those with partners, more than half report being sexually active. So it steps up if you have an active present partner. Research in England showed that 86% of men, but only 60% of women ages 60 to 69 are sexually active. There's a reason for this. Because, after a divorce, within a year, a lot of men actually remarry, whereas a majority of women probably never do. So we talk about that later. Here in Jamaica, one relationship counselor affirmed that aging does not diminish the need for intimacy and connection. The desire for a fulfilling relationship experience remains. You're not dead. So the need is real, the desire is real, but the landscape of relationships after 60 has its own terrain, its own challenges, but also its own joy. What the numbers tell us? The numbers tell us some very interesting things. As we say, women over 60 are more likely to be single than men over 60. Nearly 49% of women 65 and older are single, compared to only 21% of men. Big difference. Women live longer. Women outlive their partners. And culturally, women are less likely to seek or find new relationships quickly. So we're hoping to do something about this. This creates a world where many people, especially women, are navigating the ankle leg without a companion. And some have chosen that, some have not. So we're going to speak to both realities today. Because whether you're looking for love, navigating a new relationship, setting boundaries, or choosing glorious solitude, you deserve a guideline. You deserve a conversation. And today, you're going to have that conversation. That's what this is all about. All right? So, we're going to begin with our sisters. What do we say to the women over 60 who are open to intimate relationships? What are your rules of engagement? Well, our queens, listen. You queens in the ankle leg of life, you have raised your children, you have built careers, you've survived losses, you have navigated marriages, perhaps even divorced, perhaps even widowed. You have lived fully. And now in your heart, you're open to new intimate relationship, don't? What does wisdom say you should bring to the table? And what should you demand in return? Let's clarify all these things. Now, let's explain this. The world spends billions of dollars talking about young love, young bodies, young beauty, young attraction. But almost nobody teaches mature adults how to build emotionally healthy relationship in their latter years. And yet, this may actually be the stage of life where relationships matter the most. Why do I say that? Because after 60, you're no longer merely looking for chemistry. You're looking for peace, peace of mind. Not merely attraction, but emotional safety. Not merely someone to impress, but somebody you can exhale beside. So now we will speak honestly about these things. Why intimate relationships still matter after 60. We're going to offer detailed guidelines for women, detailed guidelines for men. Also, what are the relationship deal breakers you need to look at right up front? And one of the most important conversation of all, the choice of solitude. Not everybody desires a relationship to become whole. Sometimes solitude is not loneliness. Sometimes solitude is recovery. All right? Now, why does intimate relationships still matter after 60? It's a dangerous myth in modern society that older people no longer need intimacy, that desires disappear, that emotional longings fade, that companionship become irrelevant. That is not true. Human beings are psychologically designed for companion and connection. Even the strongest among us, and many people in the anchor leg are facing a painful reality. They have family, but not intimacy. They have children, but not companion. Many companionship, like church groups, but no emotional closeness. They're even on social media, but nobody to truly hold them emotionally. And loneliness in latter life can become psychologically devastating. Research shows that loneliness can affect your memory, it affects depression, sleep, anxiety, blood pressure, immune functioning, and even lifespan itself. Let's go deeper. At 25, people often seek excitement. But at 65, people seek emotional peace. And peace is not a small thing. Peace is medicine. Many people over 60 are no longer impressed by money alone, beauty alone, status alone, sexual performance alone. They now value emotional consistency, kindness, patience, reliability, calm communication, honesty, maturity. In the anchor leg of life, love becomes less theoretical. It becomes more spiritual. So, what are the guidelines? Ladies, allow me to speak carefully, respectfully, and honestly to you. Many women entering relationship after 60 are carrying invisible exhaustion. You have spent decades nurturing others, sacrificing, caregiving, enduring, surviving emotionally unavailable men, holding families together, putting your own emotional needs last. And now you may finally be asking, what about me? What about me? When is my turn? So let's discuss some important guidelines. Number one, do not confuse loneliness with love. Loneliness can create emotional hunger. Emotional hunger can make poor choices. Sometimes a woman is not falling in love. She's simply tired of being alone. Be careful. That difference matters because desperation weakens discernment. Take your time. Observe. Listen carefully. Watch consistently. Older adults should date slower, not faster. All right? Slow it down. Number two, look for emotional stability, not just charm. Sometimes they will charm you to death. Look for emotional stability. At this stage of life, charm is overrated. Peace is underrated. Some older men are still performing masculinity instead of living maturity. A smooth talker at 65 can still become emotional chaos at 68. Watch how he handles a variety of things, such as disappointment. How does he handle it? Conflict, frustration, criticism, boundaries. Does he become defensive, controlling, withdrawn, manipulative? Mature love requires emotional regulation. Look for all those signs early. Number 3, and this one is very, very touchy. Don't set out to become somebody's nurse, somebody's maid, or somebody's bank. That's important. Some women enter relationship because love means rescue. No. You do your share already. Love is partnership, not emotional adoption. Be careful of men who arrive with unmanaged addictions, chronic irresponsibilities, financial chaos, emotional dependency, entitlements. Be careful of those men. Compassion is beautiful, but self-destruction is not compassion. You don't take down no projects now. You're not a project manager. Number 4, protect your financial independence. Never surrender your security simply because you are emotionally attached. At this stage of your life, financial betrayal can become catastrophic. I've heard some hard luck stories. Maintain wisdom, boundaries, and clarity. Love should improve your life, not destabilize it. Rule number 5, ladies, do not shrink yourself to keep a man. Some women spend decades silencing themselves to preserve the relationship. Not anymore, that done. In the anchor leg, authenticity matters more than performance. You should not have to pretend, small up yourself, diminish your intelligence, suppress your voice, abandon your interests. Worst of all, tolerate disrespect just to maintain companionship. Rule number 6, sex matters, but so does emotional intimacy. Many older adults avoid discussing sexuality honestly, but healthy sexuality remains important, must be discussed. However, women often need emotional closeness in order to sustain physical intimacy. Conversation becomes foreplay. Trust becomes attraction. Safety becomes desire. A mature woman often seeks connection before performance. And many men do not fully understand this. I also want to point out there's a significant increase in sexually transmitted infections among the elderly. Because remember that people who are now 60 and over came of age sexually when times were very different. But enough awful things out there. So to make sure if you're making this step, do all the necessary tests and checks with confirmation. Don't just take word for it. Yeah, man, me good, me clean. No. If you're moving in that direction, make sure you're properly. Both sides are tested and checked, and the appropriate precaution is in place. Enough said. All right, gentlemen, your turn. Let's talk honestly now. Many men enter latter life emotionally unprepared. Gentlemen, sometimes on a slow. Why? Because many men were trained just to work, provide, suppress emotions, avoid vulnerability, define masculinity through performance. But in the anchor leg, your ability to emotionally connect becomes more important than your ability to impress. So what are the rules for the men now at this stage? Number 1, learn to communicate emotionally. Many women over 60 no longer want emotional guest games. They want emotional present. Talk. Express yourself. Listen carefully. Respond thoughtfully. A relationship cannot sustain on silence. Number 2, stop competing with younger men. It's a losing battle. It's not important. Some older men become psychologically trapped trying to prove they are still young. They chase validation instead of connection. But mature masculinity is not desperation. It's groundedness. It's wisdom, calm confidence, emotional steadiness. The most attractive older man is often not the flashiest, but the safest emotionally. You're a big man now. Big man things now. Rule number 3, heal before you enter a relationship. The unresolved pain, they poison relationship. The burdens that you had from the previous relationship and all the baggage, no, you can't carry that with you. Some men enter in relationships carry bitterness from divorce, unresolved anger, fear of abandonment, emotional wounds going all the way back to childhood, distrust of women. Healing matters. Otherwise, every disagreement becomes warfare. If you're still at this stage, you may need help. You may need a counselor, a psychologist, someone who can help you to unravel the baggage before you take it into another relationship. Rule number 4, learn the difference between control and leadership. Many relationships fail because men confuse leadership with dominance. Mature women do not want a dictator. They want a partner. They want respect, collaboration. A relationship is not a military operation. Rule number 5, take care of your body and your health. I simply, and I often remind people, if you don't take care of your body, where are you going to live? Physical decline affects relationship emotionally. Exercise matters. I do weight training with heavy weights 3 days per week. I do walks between 30 and 40 minutes, mainly in zone 2 with periodic VO2 max. Me good. Me do my share. Exercise matters. Nutrition matters. Sleep matters. Stress management matters. Not for vanity, but for vitality. You have the option. Either you're going to be old and agile or old and fragile. A healthy body is critical to support your confidence, your intimacy, your emotional balance, and your independence. Rule number 6, gentlemen, be honest about your intentions. You can't fool up people at this stage. Do not mislead women emotionally. Deal the cards face up. Say exactly what your intentions are. All right? At this stage of life, time is precious. Don't waste nobody's time. If you want companionship only, say so. If you want marriage, say so. If you want emotional support without commitment, say so. Clarity is kindness. You want to find somebody who is with you as a volunteer, not as a hostage. After you get them trapped in the relationship, then you tell them, boy, and that doesn't really mean, no. The MinsSpa doesn't recommend that at all. All right. So now let's step out a little bit more now, because we want to look at, we've given you the rules for men, the rules for women. What about the deal breakers? Can you spot these upfront early and to know when you need to, just cut? Let us now discuss the deal breakers. There are warning signs that should not be ignored. Deal breaker number 1, and this can come from any side: chronic disrespect. Disrespect destroys emotional safety. Watch how someone speaks when they're angry. That reveals their character. Text sleep mark death. 1 time is accident. 2 time is purpose. 3 time is worklessness. Be careful. Deal breaker number 2, financial exploitation. Be careful of relationship built around dependency or manipulation. All of a sudden, it starts with some small loans and it keeps escalating. Watch it. Love should not feel like extortion. If it feels like extortion, guess what? It is extortion. Question it very carefully up front. Pull the plug soon as you can. Deal breaker number 3, emotional volatility. Constant drama. That is exciting. At 65, many people are no longer have the emotional energy for chaos. Peace matters. You can't take on the chaos now. If this person, either side, is emotionally volatile, the least getting the blaze up, or the least thing, the malice of a week, no, you can't take on that. Not acceptable. Deal breaker number 4, addictions. Now, addictions come in many forms, physiological as well as psychological. Unmanaged addiction can consume a relationship. How about alcohol? There's a big difference, between social drinking, which is something I strongly recommend, managing alcohol in a reasonable component. It's a social lubricant. But if a person has an addictive personality and is an alcoholic, you're taking on a serious problem. What about gambling? Man or woman, interestingly, both can have gambling addiction. There are women who have gambling addiction at casinos, the local casino, and they spend every evening there. I know of some very tragic cases. Beware of addiction. Pornography. This is more a male domain, but women do get into that too. Persons who are literally addicted to porn. If you see the signs of any addiction that you see, that's a red flag. So that you have to either you bail out or you tell the person, no, that is a deal breaker for you. Unless you can contain or control this addiction, I'm out. How about compulsive dishonesty? There are people who, I've heard people say that, that truth is an acquired taste, and they never really acquired the taste for that. So whatever comes to the mind first, or whatever is the safest thing to say. So if you find yourself with somebody who's compulsively dishonest, that's a deal breaker. How about emotional dependency? Man or woman, you want, it's not two half people, half times half is quarter. You're worse than you were before. What you want is 2 whole people. 1 + 1 make 2. So if somebody is emotionally dependent, you're not taking on no more children in your life. These issues must be addressed honestly, openly, and upfront before you go in too deep. Absolutely necessary. Deal breaker number 5, lack of accountability. Some people are always the victim. It's always somebody else responsible for the outcome of their life that did something to them. If you see those signs early, that's not good. Hmm? It's often a dangerous relationship if a person does not adopt accountability. Maturity includes accountability. If you make a mistake, accept it and deal with the consequences. It can't be always somebody else's fault. There's some people who literally, they keep going back to blaming their parents, blaming their previous spouse, blaming their children, blaming the society. At some point, you have to take responsibility. So when you see somebody who lacks accountability, that is very dangerous. Deal breaker number 6, controlling behavior. Controlling. Jealousy is not proof of love. Control is not romance. Isolation is not protection. Once you start seeing these kind of signs, it gets worse. So we talk about men, we talk about women, we talk about what happens when you look out for the signs that are indicative of what should not be and what has gone wrong. So once you see those, it's time to pull the plug. But you see, sometimes, you're in too deep. So you have to make sure that, you pace it. And you ask all the hard questions early in the game. Because if you don't, you'll be in too deep. And then you get caught up in this process. Now, the area of sexuality and relationships, once you get past 60, is something that is often not talked about a lot. The assumption is that everything is focused on the young, but the evidence is very strong. There's a wonderful quote from George Burns. And what it says is that you don't stop having sex because you grow old. You grow old because you stop having sex. Somehow we don't associate sex with age. Huh? Now, we have a culture that often views older adults as asexual and invisible. We are challenging that myth. It's about time we do that. So we welcome to the space where we're having this kind of conversation here now, where desire doesn't retire and sensuality don't expire just because you reach 60, 65, 70. Huh? This conversation is long overdue. One thing that moved me in this direction, I read an article in Fast Company magazine based on some pioneering work by Joan Price. She's an author, educator, and an advocate for senior sexuality. So we were highly influenced by how she looked at this process, how she showed how it's very important that we have these conversations. And you're not alone for thinking this, because the evidence, it is clear. More than 54% of partnered individuals aged between 65 and 74 reported being sexually active. Among those aged 75 to 85, 1 in 4 had sex at least once a week. Masturbation, oral sex, and mutual stimulation remain a very common option because oftentimes the person lacks a partner, but they find a way to pleasure themselves. The need and desire is still there. Yet, senior sexuality is often still treated as a taboo topic and even laughed at in mainstream culture. But, folks, as you know, desire does not despair. It simply adapts. Now, one thing that Joan Price has pointed out, she met the love of her life when she was about 57, and they shared a very exuberant sex life until her husband passed away from cancer. Now, rather than retreating into mourning, she chose to become a voice for seniors who still wanted and deserved intimacy. Given time to grieve it took place. But then, grieving a partner doesn't mean you and your desire dies. In fact, many are left with unanswered question. Is it okay to still want sex after loss? Your partner has died? How soon is too soon to start dating again? No, she started exploring these questions. Can desire survive when your partner has Alzheimer's? So that's a whole nother question. I have seen situations where the partner is there physically, but the mind is gone. How do we navigate this? Her fourth book, the title of it is Sex After Grief. It directly addresses these questions and offers hope, healing, and permission to reclaim sexual agency at any age. We don't talk about these things, but people are silently suffering. Now, as aging bodies change, so do the logistics of sex. There's some realities. Women may face vaginal dryness or tightness. That's life. But guess what? There are also mechanisms. There are also options and ways of coping. Men may struggle with erectile dysfunction. There are provisions. There are options. Joint pain, surgery, chronic illness can limit movement and flexibility. Look, maybe in the youth you used to do some things bordering on gymnastics, but maybe you have to be a little tamer now, huh? Reality. The marketplace is now catching up. Many companies are designing innovative sex toys specifically for aging users. They have all kind of products for hands-free stimulation, even without an erection. A breakthrough for couples with physical limitation. Older adults are now 50% of their customer base. So again, probably again, you're in your 60s and 70s. Many of these sex toys and are things that was never ever part of your consciousness. But you're never too old to learn, huh? You're never too old to learn. What about online desire? There's data that says that people over 55 make up 11% of Pornhub traffic. Pornhub is one of the main sites for sexually explicit information. Though they're only about 4% of the population, persons over 55, but they make up 11% of the Pornhub traffic. So it sees that people are finding ways of means of those age 55 to 64 are 245% more likely to search mature amateur and 167% more likely to search for hot granny than younger users. So Pornhub knows that these users are out there. So they create these categories. Mature amateur, hot granny. So if people are searching for hot granny online, maybe you are a real live hot granny. That there's somebody right out there probably in your own community. You are what they desire. Remember the Jamaican saying, every hoe have them stick a bush. So we're not witnessing a silent revolution in senior bedrooms. We're watching it play out across digital spaces too. Quiet, often without acknowledgement. So what we have to make sure we don't do is start to normalize this for elder intimacy. So you don't feel that it's something that is just you one doing it and you have to hide and do it. Let's be honest. Societal discomfort with senior sex is rooted in something we call ageism. It is not biology. There is no expiration date on affection, arousal, or emotional closeness. So we have to define sex, and we have to take sexuality beyond basic parameters of penetration. Dimensions, we have to start to make sure we understand cuddling, massage, mutual touch, verbal intimacy can all nourish connection. Yes, some of you older people, you know your secret thing is the same, but talk dirty to me. You have a special space for that when certain words you hear them. Toys, lubricants. These are all tools of pleasure, not signs of inadequacy. So a combination of technology and chemistry can expand your sexual repertoire. Communication becomes even more crucial as you age. So does creativity. So again, as we say that the partner or prospective partner can't read your mind. The goal is not to imitate the sex of youth, but to embrace the full, rich, adaptive sexuality that has become yours a part of your life as you age. Absolutely important. Now, where did we get these myths from? What about some of the deepest and most profound intimacy actually lies ahead? But you grew up not hearing that was possible. The education, the price that I mentioned before, what she's also now, she's part of a group that is directing educational film. One of them is called Sex After 60, showcasing older adults demonstrated healthy, consensual, pleasurable sex on screen. The nice thing about the internet, you go online and YouTube, type in Sex After 60. Yes, you see some of my work, but then films are available, videos are available, so you can see how others do. This bold effort demystifies late life desire. So, what do we get from this? As we move into the ankle leg, we must shed the shame and embrace the sensual. Sex after 60 and 70 and 80 and even 90 isn't over. What we say, it is evolving. And in this evolution lies an opportunity for healing, discovery, and joy. So some of the questions you need to ask yourself: Have I internalized limiting beliefs about aging and sexuality? And in many cases, you have, because that's how you grew up and that's what you have around you. Ask yourself these questions so you can start to find a way out. What about, am I open to new forms of pleasure and connection? As I mentioned, when you were at your sexual peak, say in your 20s and 30s and so on, the kind of options were not even discussed, options that are available now. Huh? That's your question. Or the question you need to ask, what support or tools do I need to reclaim my intimacy? Now, you start talking to your friends and associates, and you realize that one or two of your friends may be a little bit ahead of you, and they will give you some guidelines. So I think that it's important that you talk about these things. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself, you're getting older and you still have these needs and desires, but then you're not even talking about them at all. But indeed, it's indeed necessary for you to do. We mentioned upfront, that there's also, however, the choice of solitude. And we should not overlook that. Why do I say that? There are some people, for various reasons, have gotten to a point in life where they are comfortable in their skin, where they are. And based on what they've been through and so on, they really rather spend their time in solitude. I don't want to say alone is too close to loneliness and so on, but it's not necessarily that. It's solitude. Now, let's discuss this. Not everybody in Anchor Leg is interested in pursuing a relationship. Not everybody wants one. Sometimes solitude is wisdom. Sometimes people have finally discovered peace after a decade of emotional struggle. And they may wisely choose friendship, purpose, spirituality, creativity, travel, service, self-discovery instead of a romantic partnership. And that's valid. I have written about gray divorce. That's people 60 and over who have decided to divorce. By the way, it is the fastest growing segment of divorce because of the increased longevity. And people, remember that most of these divorces are initiated by women who look at the life that they're living and realize, listen, man, I have more life ahead of me and I don't want to waste it just like this. Now, why I'm raising this here, because sometimes there are a myriad of options that have been created once we start entering the gray divorce zone, such as there are many people who are probably even friends of yours. They technically, as far as they are concerned, the relationship has ended. But because of their life being intertwined in terms of health care and pension and so on, they still live in the same house. So when you come to visit them, they'll be in the living room together and the dining table, and you all have a wonderful time. But when you go, one goes to a bedroom at one other end of the house and the other end, because they no longer are desirous of a relationship. And they've worked it out. They're saying that, listen, for one or the other, this is more drama than I want in my life. So even though they are still legally married, they live separate lives, sometimes in the very same house. So that these are, and I'm going to talk about these kind of options even more in the future. This also shows us another option. There are times when a person who is divorced or widowed, and they get used to being alone. They've grown to love their time and space. They've grown to not having to ask anybody permission for anything. Sometimes it's the first time in their life. Just imagine somebody who got married young. So they went from parents' home to husband or wife's home. And then for the last 30, 40 years, they've had to literally anything, they've had to get permission one way or the other. So this is a wonderful space that they're now in. But now they still require and desire partnership and intimacy. Now, the thought of somebody moving into your house or you moving into somebody's house does not attract you. So that there are situations where, and that's why one of the options I said up front is that people must tell the truth. Say exactly what you're looking for. Because even if the other person wasn't thinking it, the fact that you raise it, it may now become something that they start thinking about. And what I'm getting at, people have separate residence, separate space. So they maintain their total independence. Guess what? On weekends or specific time, he will visit her at her space, or she will visit him at his space, because they get that duality and that excitement as when they were dating. Have your independence, but at the same time, you have the option to, so that the rules are not made in stone by other people. So it's important that find a model that works for you. That's the bottom line. A model that works. So if it is solitude you want all the time, that's okay. If it is solitude you want part of the time, by the way, for my entire adult life, my preference is always as a man to have my own bedroom. My partner, separate bedroom. But that doesn't mean we don't spend all the time together. But I have my space. I tell you at my house, I have my own section where I have my office, I have a meditation chamber, I have my own bathroom and dressing room, and so that it's an apartment within the house where I can maintain my sanity and my individuality. So some people want the solitude alone, but if you want to combine solitude with companionship, so we say it is valid. Some people just want solitude because solitude become unhealthy only when it turns into emotional isolation. But healthy solitude can become healing, stabilizing, liberating, spiritual, transformative. Some people are not lonely. They're finally resting. So even for me, solitude is a part of my life because it is in solitude that I commune with the divine. It is in silence and solitude that I hear the universe talking to me. Oftentimes I say that's when the universe, the divine, downloads my instruction so that it is not wrong, it is not bad. It is something that, if it's something you desire, definitely. So, to wrap up, we have spoken about one of the deepest human needs, the desire to be emotionally seen, to be known, to be valued, to be loved without pretending. The ankle leg is not the end of life. It may become the most emotionally intelligent stage of life. A stage when people finally stop chasing fantasy and start building peace. Perhaps that's why material love truly is not excitement alone, but emotional refuge. I hope this was useful. I hope you gained something. If you have questions, you can leave a voicemail message at 876-383-5627. Just make a tape on your phone and send a voicemail message. I will incorporate it into future programs, or if necessary, even get back to you. The best relationships are not about perfection. They're built on emotional maturity, mutual respect, shared peace, and the courage to love honestly. I do believe indeed the best is yet to come. You can tap into www.thesemajmindspa.com. Hundreds of articles on topics like these, but again, the objective to get you to the best version of yourself. So till we meet again, walk good and make good guppy follow you. From the Mind Spa. Take care.